I think it's a great area to start an opportunity that you want and kind of take that pave the road mentality, that whether that be taking some extra courses or revamping your cover letter and resume. I think people underestimate how long that takes. So doing that before, and then it kind of prepares you for when you get out. So
do you ever have so many questions and no one to ask, so they're just wasting away on Google searches you'll forget about in an hour or so?
We had that same problem, and that's why we created the RD2B podcast, a resource for dietetic and nutrition students looking for answers that their peers don't have.
We are students Macy and Emily and registered dietitian Carl Barnes. We engage in conversations and learn from RDs.
Join us weekly as we gain insight into the unique journeys of registered dietitians all over the country.
Welcome back to another week of the RD2B podcast. I'm your registered dietitian host, Carl Barnes. This is every week where we sit down with a different registered dietitian from across the spectrum to really highlight the diversity of opportunity in the profession and just how broad the practice settings are that dietitians practice in. So very excited this week. We're actually switching it up almost a little bit and we're going international. So we've got Stefanie Di Tella with us. She is a sport-focused dietitian up in Canada. So welcome. I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more, and excited to have our first non-American dietitian on board.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm super excited to be here. So like Carl said, I'm a sport-focused dietitian. In Canada, we don't have the sport dietitian credentials yet. So just kind of sport-focused, but hopefully getting credentials in the future somehow.
Great, awesome. And like always, I'm Emily, your RD2B from University of Maryland, College Park. So we'll just get straight into the questions. So I noticed that like when we were doing like our initial talking and stuff, you were an athlete. So did your athletic background in high school, make you want to get into sports nutrition or a sports focused career, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I was a competitive athlete since a young age. I kind of picked soccer as my main sport, and I knew I always wanted to play. University level. So I was lucky enough to play at Western for 5 years. But like as a kid, I really had no idea about nutrition. Like most kids don't. Like eat chicken nuggets before a game and you're good to go. But once I got into grade 10, grade 11, I kind of started to notice like how nutrition kind of affects your, like if I ate too much, my stomach hurt, or if like I didn't eat enough, I didn't have enough energy. Like slowly starting to make those connections. I took a nutrition course in grade 10, but it was more like a home ec course. Like we baked cakes and we like made pasta and like, which was really cool, but it wasn't like nutrition. I knew I really liked biology, but I didn't know what I could do with that. And one of my soccer coaches was like super into fitness and nutrition kind of freak. So he did a bunch of classes with us, which I really, really liked. And when it came to like picking universities, I think I decided nutrition was what I wanted to do. It was sciencey and it was like sport, it could be sport focused. So I applied to university to be a dietitian, and in Ontario we only have 4 schools that have the accredited program. So I applied to all 4, didn't get into 2, I didn't get into 3. So I went to the one that I got into, Western. I reached out to the coaches there and I joined the team. And so then I went to university for the dietetic program. And it was such a culture shock when I got there, like living on your own first of all, for everyone. The competitiveness of the team, you go from being like the big fish in grade 12, and then you go to the team and you're not getting playing time, not even getting looked at. And then the competitiveness of the dietetic program, and I'm sure you know, like people are really serious, and I didn't know about that. I didn't know that there were a certain number of spots. So it was a huge life change, and then just a lifestyle change of hanging out more with people, drinking a little bit more. Your nutrition kind of falls off. And I think I really noticed how that affected my grades and my soccer performance, my fitness. And so from there, I think that's when I really started to connect nutrition and fitness and sport, and kind of led me down that path.
Awesome. So how would you, like, I know that at least at Maryland, we have about 11 or 12 science courses, including like biochem, organic chem, gen chem, mam phys, stuff like that. So what did your like sciences look like when you were at Western?
Yeah, same thing. Like we did chem, like organic chem. I don't know. Did you guys do organic chem? It was awful.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we did that. We did like biology. We didn't do. Oh yeah, we did physiology. No like physics or anything. I really did not want to do that. So yeah, we had the hard sciences, and then we had like the nutrition focused like courses. I'm sure you guys did too.
Yeah, awesome. So what's the most valuable thing that you got from receiving a master's, since you got a master's in science?
Yeah, I think the master's was really, really beneficial. I personally, I never saw myself doing a master's or anything in research, which I think was the best thing I could have done was do a master's, because I was really weak in research. I know we have, I don't know what you guys call it, but we call it research methods and like statistics. And I like did not do well in those classes, and it kind of just all went over my head. But in the master's program, you're forced to use that, and like you really apply the theory. So like how to do a lit search and the statistical test, which don't sound like the most exciting things, but when you're in practice as a dietitian, like you're researching every day, and to find out how like what research is good, what research is not good, stuff like that. The master's program really helped me with that. And I think the biggest thing it helped me with is professionalism. So like I found the master's program as a bridge from undergrad to internship, where you kind of were responsible for your own time, for setting things up, like emailing back and forth, talking to ethics boards, which was a huge jump for me. Like I was still a kid in undergrad, and then that kind of really accelerated it. And then internship, you're a professional, so it was a great learning experience.
That's great to hear that you had like that was able to bridge, the gap between, I guess, I don't want to say maturity, but almost
Yeah,
like a maturity gap, that it helps like that bridge.
yeah,
So how did Fuel with Steph come about?
yeah. So pretty much last in March 2020, I was in a hospital internship, and of course COVID hit, and we weren't allowed to go back, and I had 5 weeks left before I graduated. So they were just like, we're going to put this on hold, and we'll let you know when things open up and you have to go back into a hospital. So I had a bunch of time off, and I was going crazy at home. I didn't know what to, like, there's nothing to do. So I thought I knew I wanted to start my own private practice later on in my life. And I thought this would be a good time, because since I had so much time, to just start like a little Instagram page with some nutrition tips and maybe some recipes and stuff. So that kind of started. And then I got to finish my internship and became a temporary RD. And so while I was studying for the CDRE, our registration exam, I kind of started taking Fuel stuff a little more seriously, and started seeing that it could definitely be a one-on-one counseling business. And I really had to pick a direction for it, or a target market for it. And I took my experience as a student athlete, and I knew that we had like in Canada, it's different than the US. The US has deregulation. They have sport dietitians in their universities. In Canada, you have nothing. It's like, if you don't know about nutrition, then you don't know about nutrition. So I noticed there was a huge gap for these athletes. They're training 6 to 7 days a week, and they have no idea what to eat before, after, performance nutrition, anything like that. So I noticed there was a gap, and so I kind of developed Fuel Steph to kind of address that gap when I did become an RD, and provide some expertise as a former athlete and now as an RD.
So is your target audience more collegiate athletes or high school? Because I know that you were an athlete since you were younger. So what's like your target group?
Yeah, so I'm doing both mostly. Like obviously I have a soft spot for collegiate athletes. I think that's my main goal. I want to work with them because I notice how unsupported they are. High school athletes, they kind of have their parents a little to guide them, and usually they're eating good meals if their family is well informed. Um, but college athletes are so on their own, especially in Canada, that's definitely a soft spot. And so I want to use my previous experience to help them. But yeah, I work with high school athletes, younger athletes, former varsity athletes, and then just active individuals within their life.
Great. And I noticed that you do like workshops with them. So how do you plan them and then execute them? Because I know you said that Fuel with Step is kind of one-on-one. So what type of like group activities do you do?
Yeah, so I'm for the workshops, the way it works is usually the coach will it's usually from a coach or like a high school gym class teacher. They'll contact me saying they want to set up a workshop, and I'll treat it like a one-on-one. Like we we set up a discovery call or a consultation, and that's usually where I get the most information from the coaches or from the high school coach, just to get a more individualized approach to the presentation. So for example, I just had a call with a coach a couple of days ago, and we talked about the ages of her girls, um, what the main nutrition issues are, because a coach is kind of on the front lines and they see what's going on with their kids. And one of her biggest thing was at tournaments, they go for ice cream or stuff between a game and they feel awful for the rest of the day. So we're going to touch on that. And then we just designed the program, and I have all these skeletons of presentations, and then I take what the coach has told me and I individualize it and tailor it and then do the extra research that's needed. Um, I do a lot of interactive games during the workshops. So especially for the younger group, I feel like they respond way better than that, than me just talking to them for the whole time. So we do that. And then I send them off at the end with a performance package. So that just has like resources that we talked about that are specific to the topics. And then some recipes. They like those, they can do it with their parents and their teammates. And then I give them also a discount to one-on-one services for my business. Just if they need extra nutrition support, they kind of have a discounted service. And then, yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, and the last thing is program evaluation. So I'm sure you've heard of that through undergrad, and it's kind of a boring word. And I thought it kind of went over my head, kind of like research for a long time, until I had to do it and I saw the extreme value in it. If you don't get feedback on your program, like I'm sure you guys know for the RD2B mentorship program, if you don't get feedback on it, there's no way to improve it for the next time. So I take that part really seriously, and I'm really thankful for the coaches and athletes that take the time to do it.
Sure. So like you can, do things, I don't want to say to make it better, but like to make it more
Yeah,
valuable to other people.
exactly.
So I know you're sports focused, but like with these athletes, do you have any experience with like eating disorders, since it is kind of prevalent in athletes, or do you like steer clear of that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And usually in the college level, there's some underlying, not with everyone, but with a lot of, especially female athletes, there's always an underlying, um, like a little bit of disordered eating, maybe not an eating disorder, especially from the pressure from coaches that are usually male that don't kind of resonate with the young females. So I think it's a huge area. And unfortunately, I'm not trained in it right now. I know a few of my colleagues specialize in REDS, or eating disorders in sport. And so right now I just refer to them, but it's definitely something I want to get more involved with, because I don't think you can just ignore it, especially with working in that demographic.
Yeah, especially, like you said, with the demographic of student athletes, stuff like
Mhm.
that. So, do you work with individuals that are not athletes, or you work with strictly athletes?
Yeah, so I work with individuals that aren't athletes as well. Of course, my focus is athletes, but I have a package on my website called the Wellness Package, and that's usually for non-athletes. And it differs a little, but like the methods I use for both athletes and non-athletes are similar. It's just for performance optimization for an athlete is a little different. Like it's a bit more serious. It's a bit more not strict, but it's more for a short-term goal, so it's more direct. I would never use some of the methods I use for athletes for regular, just everyday people, because it might be too strict for them, too direct, too goal oriented. Like, for example, for my athletes, I use a fueling plan, which is not a meal plan. It's more like it goes with their time schedule, and it can break down some of the numbers in their food if they want that. And I don't think I would use that for a non-athlete because it can get very restrictive and very maybe obsessive. So it's hard to switch between sometimes. You have to kind of put two different hats on when you're working with an athlete who's very, very dedicated and goal driven to an everyday person just trying to make their life a little healthier.
Yeah, of course. And since you mentioned earlier the mentorship program, and since like we obviously know that you care about students, like student athletes, how did you feel about being a mentor for the program this past spring?
Yeah, it was a really great opportunity. I saw one of my friends, she shared your post, and I thought I have the time right now. And in my fourth year, became the captain of the team at Western, and I took on more of a mentorship role there, and I really started to like it. I liked how I could kind of tell the younger girls like, oh, I did this and this is what helped me. And it just kind of gave you a sense of fulfillment just to help them, because I remember when I was in first year, I was like lost and I would look to anyone that would help me. So I think I took that, and I know I'm still young and just coming out of school, but I think anyone can really offer some value to, especially to maybe the students would be able to resonate a little more because you're just coming out of school. So I saw that and I thought I would take up the opportunity, and super glad I did, because my mentee was really great, and I learned a lot from her as well. So it was a great program.
So what valuable pieces of advice would you, really make sure that the student got when you were at the end of the program?
Yeah, so I think my biggest piece of advice for my student was, and you guys probably heard this so many times, but I think it was networking. I'm really starting to see the benefit of networking now, coming out of school, like no job, trying to get into a niche sport nutrition world. And networking can sound so scary. It doesn't have to mean like going to an event and sitting with all these people. No, we can't do that right now anyways, but like my advice to her was just get your LinkedIn page up and going, update it, post on it, be active, and then just find people that in the area that you're interested. So she was interested in long-term care. So she would find long-term care dietitians and just send them a message like, hey, I love the area you're in. I'm a student. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And more often than not, I found a lot of people were willing to help, which is really cool. And you don't think like this person doesn't have time, but most people, especially dietitians, are really helpful people in nature, and they'll definitely take some time. So I think that was my biggest piece of advice for her. And you're gonna have to start doing that when you're looking for a job as well. So it's good to start it now and get that base of connections.
Of course, yeah. And like I think the way that Carl and I wanted it to be is obviously, the students, they learn so much, but also the RDs learn so much as well, because it's usually a two-way process, because we know stuff that you guys don't, you guys know stuff that we don't, whether it's about like, as dumb as it sounds, like technology, stuff
Yeah.
like that, like how to network a little bit more, because like I know some of the RDs were a little bit older, stuff like that, and some of them were really close in age, like you and your mentee, because you just finished your internship. So
Yeah.
did you learn or take anything away from the program?
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. And my mentee was actually older than me, which she was a mature student. So she was going back. So that kind of threw me because I was like, what is she gonna listen to me about? I'm a child compared to her. But so it was good because she took a lot from me because of course I just became an RD, so I went through the program, and she was working in the business world for a bit. So she taught me a lot about like applications, how to have like those conversations in the business world. And just like the way she conducts herself was something that I looked at and took a lot from. She also taught me about Grammarly. Have you guys heard of that? Oh, I never heard of that.
I love it. I
Oh,
love it.
it's so helpful. Now I do everything on it. So she taught me about that. And there's actually a really funny story. She's from North Carolina. I'm from Ontario. And at the end of it, she was super thankful that I took the time. So she wanted to do something nice for me. So she bakes her own sourdough bread and cheese sticks. And so I don't know why neither of us thought of this, the distance between us, but she sent me the breadsticks and the cheese sticks. And then like a week goes by and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just realized it's gonna take 4 weeks to get there. She's like, don't be offended if I sent you moldy bread or moldy cheese sticks. And sure enough, it got here and they were moldy. But I really appreciated the gesture, so I hope she knows.
I love that. Because you think like if it's in the same country as you, yeah, it'll be there in like 3 to 4 days, but not 3 to 4 weeks. That's awesome. So with like food in mind, and this is a really, really tough question, but what is your favorite food?
Oh, honestly, that is a tough question, and you don't want to sound like too dietitian-y, right?
Mhm.
But okay, my favorite food is definitely veggie burgers and sweet potato fries. And I'm not even close to being a vegetarian, but I had one bad experience in the States with a real burger at Fuddruckers. Do you guys know Fuddruckers? Bad experience, so I'll never eat a burger again, but veggie burgers definitely are a runner-up, and they taste really good, so that's my choice.
Awesome. And then I guess to wrap it up, what piece of advice would you give, students that are going through the dietetic journey who are struggling because of the pandemic and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it is really definitely a tough time for everyone, and no matter what kind of life stage you're in. I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is kind of don't sweat the stuff you can't control, and kind of try your best with the stuff you can control. So things like not being able to see a bunch of people, maybe it's hard to find a job or an internship because options are a little bit limited right now. That stuff we can't change, and we can't change where we're going to be, where we're going to study, stuff like that. But things we can change, if we have a little extra time right now and you're just kind of not getting the opportunities you want, I think it's a great area to start an opportunity that you want and kind of take that pave the road mentality, that whether that be taking some extra courses or revamping your cover letter and resume. I think people underestimate how long that takes. So doing that before, and then it kind of prepares you for when you get out. So the way I like to view it is COVID is kind of like a standstill time to kind of catch up on everything you lack. And then once you get out, you're going to become a much better dietitian, much better student at the end of it, because you took that time to do something productive.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me.
I think that's great ending advice. Like
Oh,
it's very optimistic and perfect. So thanks again for being a mentor and for being here and sharing this great wisdom. And for
No
everyone
problem.
listening, check back each week. We post a different interview with a new dietitian.